Hello, welcome to Fridays at 4 on twitch.tv/DDO stream. I'm your community manager, Cordovan, and I'm going to be with you for the next hour hanging out. We're going to be talking transfers. We're going to be in game on Thrain doing a whole bunch of things. And this is going to be my last week with you for a couple of weeks. I will not be here next week because I am headed to Gen Con. Also, hey, you want to say hello?
Hello.
My son is going to be going to Gen Con with me, and if you're going to be at Gen Con, you can say hello to me in person because we've got a meetup happening Friday, August 1st. This is at Punch Bowl Social right downtown, sort of east side of downtown, just kind of east of the main Meridian Square, as they say, that big strip of restaurants and such. And Punch Bowl Social, and we're at capacity. Actually, we were taking RSVPs, and on Monday, this past Monday, I determined after looking at the RSVPs that we were in fact just ever so slightly over our capacity. So what that means is that if theoretically every single one of you who says you're going to show up does show up at 6 o'clock, we might have to make a line or something like that. It'll be kind of up to the venue and depending on what they want us to do. But we're going to be there from 6 to 9 p.m. So if you didn't get to RSVP, you can probably stop by and say hi. Just don't do it right away. Wait until the place clears out a little bit. People will hang out for typically hour and a half, something like that. But they also have their own Gen Con plans as well with other people, perhaps on Friday night. So it would not surprise me at all if, a little bit later on during that 6 to 9 p.m. period, you couldn't just walk in and say hello. So if you're going to be there, say hello. I'd love to see you. We do have a little bit of swag. 8-1 is the first day of school for you. I thought my son's early August school was early. 8-1 is even earlier. Ouch. Also, really? You have to start school on a Friday? Oof. Okay. Otherwise, though, this week has really been about a couple of different things. It's been about our first post-weekend for character transfers. We had a pretty rough Sunday night on our 64-bit game worlds as everyone unpacked their stuff, and we saw some of the impacts that we had warned about in our transfer guide. We had gotten a bit of a false sense of security because those first couple of days we hadn't really seen all that much, but by the time Sunday rolled around, there were enough of you who had successfully transferred and who were at the point of unpacking, in addition to just questing, that Sunday night, I think anyone who was playing it will be well aware that it was a little on the rough side. Pretty rough. So what we spent a lot of this week doing is taking a look at that information and seeing what we could do about it. A couple of different areas I can talk about. One of the things is even last weekend we had done this, but we've done a little bit more of this week, which is we're setting aside the guild space. The guild airships are really pinned to their own part of the hardware and server environment. And what that allows us to do is really separate that off, not only to make sure it has all the space it needs, but when things are rough on guild airships, it has less of an impact on anything else because it's not sharing any or very few resources, if any. And so that's one thing we've done. The other thing we've done, and this isn't related to people who have characters who are struggling to transfer over after repeated attempts. One of the things that we've done to manage transfers is to set sort of timeout limits. And what that allows us to do is make sure transfers move as quickly as they can. But in the case of a character with an exceptionally large data footprint, either due to the age of the account, just the activity, past lives, whatever that character has, we have seen some number of people who are getting essentially into a timing out state when trying to transfer. And that's why you're not really able to transfer some of those characters successfully that you've tried multiple times, even when it wasn't busy, kind of a thing. So we did work on that this week as well, and we'll be doing additional work as warranted, really through the weekend as we see how things go. But a lot of people who couldn't transfer last weekend were able to transfer this week due to the changes that we were able to make. The other thing is, since we debuted it last Thursday, we have gone through that initial transfer rush. And right now, I say this, hoping I'm not going to cause an avalanche. But and we are seeing heavier transfer periods during peak times. But in general, transfers are real quick right now, especially if you're going at an off time, not people's prime play times and things like that. It's been a quick process, really, for the past couple of days at the very least. One of the things we've been talking about is that we are getting ready to release a free coupon that's going to address favor issues and perhaps a little more on top of that. And that should be ready to go by next week. There was some discussion about whether we could get it out this week, but we really want to go through the following weekend here to see how things go before we potentially add a whole lot more stress on the game worlds. So that's really what's up with that. But that should be ready to go unless something really bad happens over the weekend here. Should be ready to go earlier next week. It's hard to provide specific guidance, Chris the Mistword, about specific transfer issues. You have a friend who has 33 characters unable to transfer, and I guess my question would be: have they packed? Are they trying to transfer them on off hours individually, or are they trying to get all 33 together? I would suggest not doing that. Try to do it individually or close to it if you can, and see if that perhaps makes a difference to your friend. Yeah, yeah. I hear Axel is going to be there. Yeah. Yeah, nice to see you in chat. Okay, I have gotten through that part. So the other things that we did this week is we released a few more coupon codes, and I want to make sure that I get the word about that. For one thing, this week we created a coupon code to help people who want to change their last names, their surnames. Some number of people who got renamed or chose to rename or whatever no longer have a suitable last name now as a result of them. So this is a 10 per account use of my last name is. That's the coupon code. My last name is 10 per account through December 31st. That means through the end of the year, you can use that coupon code 10 times. So you put the coupon code in, redeem it, change a name. Put the coupon code in, redeem it, change a name. And you can do that up to 10 times. We also have the same thing with our character renames that have been around for a while. Also, our 100 slots coupon. And then this week, the other new one is our Airship coupons. We ran into an issue last week with the Airship coupons we had set up to help people solve a problem where Airship cosmetics, like the Airship ring, hull, color, things like that, were not transferring over. The coupons didn't work. So we were able to solve that this week by creating new coupons that get you a lot of stuff. And let me actually swap in game here. I can show you, because I happen to be on a character of relevancy to this, where if you put in the coupon codes like Airship Hull 2, you will get one of every Airship Hull color. Sail Airship Sail 2, one of every sail color, etc., etc. Here we go, and my logo. Okay, we're good. Anyway, gonna need a little inventory space here. It's 5 items, 6 items, and 7 items. So depending on what you're trying to replace, you'll get them all. Use the one you want, save the ones you don't. They're all bound to account. If you don't want to save them, get rid of them. They were free. And that's the deal with that. But we did get that out this week as well. Before I get going here, let me just do Daily Dice. The character we're playing right now is Armagh. This is on Thrain. This is one of the first characters I transferred over last week. And the issue I found with this character is that, I needed to test this character to see what would happen if you reincarnated before unpacking. We wanted to get a real life case of just what would happen. And since it was a weekend, I was just like, you know what? I got a character ready to reincarnate. Let's just do this. So I did, and now Armagh is no longer a frenzied berserker barbarian, but is rather a level 3 dragon lord. I can also tell you that the end result was your packing is not preserved through reincarnation. Honestly, no big surprise there, but it is true. So we solved that problem by not allowing you to do that. And that was in this week's patch. The Reincarnation Grove in NPC in particular will not allow you to reincarnate if you are packed. No, this is... which character is the one that broke the reincarnation cache? It was not this one. It was a different character. I'll have to check. I think it was my old Argo character. I'll look and just tell you. But I think it was my old Argo character Zentradi. And I am actually happy to provide some news to you today that may excite quite a few people. And that is, we had to pivot quickly on the reincarnation cache in order to facilitate these transfers. But our engineers have had the opportunity to take a look at things. And we believe, famous last words, that we may have identified what was causing these items to go missing in the first place. And if that proves true, we have a fix in. And if that proves true, we may be in a position to allow people in the future to transfer with their reincarnation cache intact without any worry. And if that happens, we will most certainly let you know and remove the restriction that you need to get rid of things in your reincarnation cache before you pack. But for now, that's the case. Turns out when we were able to identify all these very specific characters, we're able to start to see a pattern emerge, which appears to be something along the line of reincarnations that had elements of a pre-2020 adjustment to them that is not syncing correctly prior to reincarnation. If ultimately you are in a position where you need to be VIP in order to access your characters, then you will need to be VIP in order to access your characters. That is the way this is set up, so. Oh, I think I need to kill some of these, don't I? There's not 21 here before the end. Okay. So, if you need to prepare a character while you're VIP, then do that. Otherwise, you may need to make a choice. If there is further guidance I can offer, we'll let you know. The other thing I can tell you, one of the larger things we had to deal with this week as well was the reliance of our email system to deliver successful and failed messages upon transfer. And we know that we have further work that needs to be done there. It's just not, it has not proven itself up to the task of really being able to handle the load that we put it under last week. I'm happy to say, however, that we have been able to keep a closer eye on it this week, and the system has been far more reliable this week. But it's still the case that the system pretty easily gets bogged down, and then delays start to take place in terms of notifications. I have received spotty emails on all my characters. I transferred maybe 10 characters and received somewhere 4 or 5, so maybe about 50%. Specifically, I know that anyone who transferred over the weekend almost certainly didn't get an email. And that's just because that system was just not systeming. Oh, yes. Is the next Lamania next week? Yes. We are currently on track to have a loot preview for the Chill of Ravenloft next week. Stay tuned for more information and release notes and things like that. A feedback thread, but yeah, you will get the ability, most likely next week, to be able to check out our loot preview for Chill of Ravenloft. Exact timing could be something like Tuesday afternoon that opens up. Really is just going to depend on how things go. It's true, us Gen Con people are going to have a busy week next week, won't we? Nonetheless, there's a whole lot of people not going to Gen Con, and those people can check out the Chill of Ravenloft loot before they head there. There's a bunch of reasons why emails fail to deliver. Some of them, in this case, was on our end, where the system itself essentially just backs up and fails. But there's also always some percentage, and a larger percentage than you might think, of emails that we're sending out just fine. They're just not being received. And it's because we have lived for so many years now in an era of email anti-spam and things like that. And it just means that depending on rules that are set up in your inbox, you know, your email provider will say, where does this rate? Where does this rate? What have you opened in the past? What have you blocked in the past, for example? What is it that you've done? Do you delete them? Do you open them? Or do they just go straight into your deletion every time one comes in? And it starts to train itself over time. And then there are also all sorts of other things which are like, all right, well, you know, you sent out 50,000 emails from this address, so this can't be good. You see, man, I need to get this guy off the wall. I've got a ranged weapon. Let me just do this. Where's my ranged weapon? Alright, there we go. So the game performance issues in general we're seeing are largely due to all of the heavy command activity that is taking place in the game worlds. And that's everything from packing and unpacking to using the shared banks a lot. You know, lots of people transferring things in and out of banks, guild airships being created and amenities being... There's a bunch of things. So it depends on where you are, what time of day it is. Is it a peak time period? Is it not a peak time period? And there's a whole bunch of factors involved as to the lag. But in general, it's been the case that our performance, like last Sunday night, was ultimately tied back to the amount of heavy activity having on the server, and sadly being the thing we warned about. That we have limited control over, which is all the packing and unpacking kind of messing things up. So ultimately, that'll subside as people get settled into their new homes, pack, unpack, all the guilds get set up, all the guilds get repopulated, and everything like that. But some other things that we can do, for example, a lot of the packing and unpacking, especially on Sunday, was happening on guild airships. Particularly, like, say, in the cargo holds of airships, we saw a lot of people doing things. And that is a space that we need to keep an eye on, shall we say, and manage. So, a worst-case scenario, this is an option we have, to date, not done, but it is something that is something we could do, is to block the door from access to the lower decks. What that would mean is the only way is that if you hadn't placed your amenities, you're out of luck until you allow access to the doors. But that also means you can only access the top of your airship. What that would do is solve a lot of these problems that we're seeing of heavy usage on heavy parts of the airships. But that wouldn't necessarily solve the problem if people instead found a different location from which to do everything. If ultimately that led people to move away from the airship cargo hold, for example, into other parts of the game world and spread out that load, that could have an impact on what we're seeing. That would decrease the performance hit that we're seeing take place. But if people instead just all popped to wherever, House C Crafting Hall, and did the same thing, then we would really be back in the same place you were to begin with. And so we haven't jumped the gun on it. We haven't done that yet. We had our worst stuff that was on Sunday night, and then we saw a little bit more on, was it Wednesday night? We are looking into some player reports, enough of them that it clearly happened. We're looking into the why did it happen, which is that something we did yesterday during our game update triggered a renown loss for a bunch of guilds. The guilds who really seemed to notice it and call our attention to it were level 200 guilds that suddenly found themselves level 198. To the best of our ability, we didn't do anything, and by that I mean we continued to put in the don't do anything with renown that had been in place before we took the game worlds down. So, not 100% sure what happened there, but that is something we are looking into. And it's probably something like maybe an order of operations issue when we take the worlds down or start them up. And if we can identify what we can do to mitigate that, we will. Because, like, we check the property tables for guild renown, decay, and things like that, and they're all set to what they're supposed to be. But nonetheless, we had some number of guilds take a renown hit. So, are you aware Guild Unpack is not yet working? Oops. Oh, the cleric's down. So guild unpacking is not, in general, not functioning. Plenty of people are doing it, but there are a myriad, 100 different flavors of I need customer support help associated with transfers. One of them I know are probably a big pile of those tickets are people who started the packing process, did not wait for the completion message to complete, not get to the point of getting the timestamp and logging out. Maybe they weren't expecting it. Maybe they thought it would just be an instant pack or something like that. But we saw, when you're looking at large crowds of people, subset of people who say logged into a character type / transfer pack, wait 2 seconds, log back to CareGen, log into the next character, do transfer pack, that kind of thing. And in many cases, if you log out mid-pack, as it were, you're okay. In that, if you've gotten to the point of, say, shared bank, then some stuff just isn't going to get packed, but it'll still be there in the shared bank for a subsequent pack. But if it happened, say, while it was trying to write your guild data, perhaps, or some other aspect of the packing process, it could cause an issue, not just with transfer, but with unpacking. We've done some bulletproofing, both by, in this week's patch, adding text to the command, letting you know you don't do anything until you see the following message. But also, we've disabled the ability to log out through the in-game menus when you are in the middle of a packing process. Like, that isn't going to stop everybody, because you could just Alt F4, you could, X out of the game client, you could turn your computer off, you could unplug your computer, whatever, right? But for the regular game menu, when you try to log out and you're mid-pack, it'll say, don't do this yet, you're still packing. And so both of those things happen this week. Can you time out during an unpack? Not that I'm aware of. This would only be, the timing out stuff was only about transfer, not packing or unpacking. And in some ways, you could think of it not entirely unlike the double login bug from back in the day, which is essentially that the data gets large enough that the process of reading it times out the operation, because operation is like, this is taking too long, this is just not working. When in fact, if it had waited long enough, it may have succeeded. That's not a guarantee or anything, but it might have. If then your next question is, well, okay, so then just set it to not time out. That setting also determines the speed at which people transfer. So if on, say, last Thursday, it would have taken you a minute to transfer, and I'm not saying that was the case, but let's just say it took a minute last Thursday, after we make this change, it might take 2 minutes. And while that may not mean much, it's like, what's an extra minute on a singular character, when you think about the total number of characters that need to transfer, these smaller adjustments can lead to a pretty significant variance in how long it takes to get through everything. So we have to be cautious not to just sort of set that too large either, because then people who would normally be transferring in a minute might now take an hour, and if it was going to take an hour, now it'll take a day. And we don't want that either, right? So the issue with Thrain and Cormyr last night was ultimately an environmental issue. We had a, what was it now?
With the thieves gone,
Essentially a database issue. Okay, where am I? And we had to correct that and then bring the worlds back up. Can you time out due to AFK while unpacking? I don't know the answer to that. I have never tried. So far, we have not seen any population concerns in terms of like overpopulation. Abracadagger, which is a pretty cool name. We've had full servers, but we've not seen, say, the kind of perhaps even overpopulation that we saw on like one of the Lotro game worlds after their transfers. Things seem to be spread out pretty acceptably.
The thief laughs as you approach.
That dipsqueak sent you to take
The people who were working on our transfers, our engineers, have been putting in countless hours, as have our network operations, our technical support, and frankly myself as well. I think my son can attest that I have had some pretty late nights the past 2-3 weeks. We still have some work to do, we know that, but we did get a lot done, didn't we, in the past week and a half, and things are cooking along really pretty well right now, with some issues that need to be addressed, including, say, any of what will always be some moderate number of customer support direct interactions and interventions needed, along with dealing with the issue of characters who are not transferring successfully right now, and some other things. But after we were able to get last week's patch out and heading into this weekend, hopefully, fingers crossed, this will be a weekend where we do not all have to work all weekend, and we can actually have a couple of days off after really several weeks of very long hours and more than a few late nights. The good news is all lag is solved forever. Oh.
You have searched every area within the miller's home, save the basement.
Are the transfers trickling down? When do we see as a possible, quote, no traffic period? Next month sometime? Well, we have actually seen some of that this week. There have been whole sections of time this week, like 4 6-hour long periods, where you could transfer basically instantly if you engaged in a character transfer. So we're in some ways there already, and that's why we'll have more information to say about the thing that I've been hinting at for a couple weeks now during the first part of next week, because we're there. The only caveat I would say to that is we don't know what's going to happen over the weekend. And we saw last weekend, so last Thursday, right, there was, of course, the giant wall of transfers that came in right away. And then that was really sustained all weekend long, so we don't entirely know whether we're going to see a whole second mountain of transfers this weekend. We well might, though. It would kind of make some sense that we would.
In the back room of the basement. A particularly nasty-looking iron
But
fender
we'll see. either way, we know that tons of people have transferred. They are playing on the new worlds, and once we get through everyone's tickets and that, we should be in a pretty good place. We then are going to be working on our 64 to 64-bit transfers. We're going to be working on setting up and then deploying the Ghost Worlds. We also have, of course, Chill of Ravenloft to get out in August, and is next week not the last week in July. So we are merely weeks away from the release of Chill of Ravenloft as well. So no one's taking 2-week vacations, I can tell you that much. When might we turn off daily dice rolls on the new worlds? Not yet determined. Likely, however, before the end of August 31st. We really don't want people just hanging out on the 32-bit worlds to collect daily dice. So we'll probably shut it off. I haven't heard. I wouldn't want to say. I would think something no later than mid-August, but we'll see. It honestly, it hasn't. It's not a top priority. We have other things to. We've had other things to worry about since last Thursday, but something like that. Oops.
A skittering sound beneath the floor sets your nerves on edge.
So nobody owns a name per se. However, if you feel that you have been a victim of harassment through a name theft, and especially if you feel you have some evidence to support that, get in touch with customer support and they'll do what they can. We want to help as many people as we can. But if ultimately you're just one of 3 people who wanted to have name X and you weren't the one to get it, that does not mean your name was necessarily stolen, even if you had it under the 32-bit game worlds.
With a final spasm, the last scorpion collapses.
It really just kind of depends on circumstances, right? Like, there have been cases on the forums that clearly we need to take a look at. There are, some well-known names and peoples and things who have had some very specific troubles. And, we want to see what we can do there. But the idea of trying to set up some kind of panel to review, well, this person has had it for 5 years, but this person's been wanting it for 7. What are the good bits of news for those who have been victim of a deliberate name theft? We have learned from history that often submitting tickets can help, not only because it can help you, but it can help other people as well. And by that I mean this, which is, it has certainly been the case in the past that there really are not very many name thieves out there. But some of the people who perhaps are willing to engage in that deleterious behavior will not just pick one victim, but a whole bunch of victims. And so what you end up with is, from a customer support and name stealing resolution side, if you track down a couple of obvious culprits, you can often clear out a whole bunch of tickets. Because that one person grabbed 12 different well-known player names. That kind of thing. So that's both encouragement, perhaps, to send in a ticket if you want to. I mean, if you want to, do it. Let's also to say that if maybe you are pretty darn sure that you got name sniped by someone who you were in a fight with, but you just don't really have any way to prove it, perhaps your issue will be resolved when one of the names that was stolen by someone who does have proof of it is able to respond to CS, and they start looking at the names, and they're like, oh, that one's got a ticket, oh, that one's got a ticket, oh, that one's got a ticket, you know, and you can often clear out a whole bunch in a short period of time. Hopefully that'll be the case this time. Well, okay, you know, just to put your name out there, since you gave it their bagel power, is a great example of what we're talking about the complexity of this particular concern. What if I had the name Zeus? If someone takes that name, is it fair game? Will CS give it back to me? I am going to say, in the case of someone with the name Zeus, probably not. And the reason for that is that that is not your name. You may have taken it during the last period, but that is such an incredibly common name, and totally not something that is, say, brand specific, as it were. I mean, tons of people might pick that name. That if you didn't get it right away, I mean, on the other hand, if you got a DM history in your Discord of someone who you've been fighting with who's like, haha, I've taken Zeus, let's see us know.
Cleared the infestation from the southern wing of the crypt.
All I could say is I am glad I am not one of the CS agents having to sort through name conflicts. I would also say that the number of people who are adding me on Discord, hoping that I will solve their problem for them, is... I'm sorry. I will not
The
be.
spider's lifeless body crunches under your boots.
Not only do I have a billion other things to do than get involved in people's name dispute tickets, since I am not, in fact, a CS agent, but also, there's no way. No way. What I can do, however, if you do have a very specific case, like I know, for example, there's a very well-known guild that may be having an issue, and I would assume at some point I will be made aware of what that ticket number is, and when that happens, I can sort of write some sort of internal note to provide a little bit of CS context as to who is this guild, for example. That's sort of what I could do. But can I adjudicate someone who's like, no, Zeus, for example? I'm sorry. I just can't. Oh, I can level up. Let me level up quick here. Yes. Good advice, Druid's Fire. So we have created a change name command. This has been in the game forever, but most of the time people never really run into it or need to use it. And it is slash change name space whatever you want your new name to be. And trying to write that in a way that causes no confusion at all has proven more challenging than you would think. For example, we've put in quotes to demark where the slash begins and what to do, and we put new name in parentheses to let you know that is where you're supposed to put your new name. But we have had some subset of people who I think understandably just due to unfamiliarity would type in slash change name space new name space whatever they want their new name to be and then run into issues. So yeah, just be careful about that. You don't actually type in new name, like the letters new name. You just type in what you want your new name to be. Yes, I take swim. I invest points in swim. I always will, always will. I also think I am taking... What am I taking here? I'm either taking mobility or I am taking tactical training. Yeah, I'm going to take mobility. You say that. I am team swim skill. Every time you fly, you move faster if you have a high swim skill. Did you know that? I bet a lot of people know that. Well, it's true. And of course, every time you swim, and there's plenty of swimming in this game, that a good swim skill comes in handy. Yeah, it's true. These solar sleds are set up in a different way, so they don't use that same... They don't use that same kind of thing. If you want to give it a quick check on the swim skill, the Reaver's Refuge is a great place to check it. You can give yourself whatever and then put on a nice plus 20 swim item or whatever you happen to have, and you'll be like, whoa. You do move a lot. You cook. Let's see. If you want to change it beyond that without it, do you need a CS ticket still? Correct. If you have already used your guild rename and for whatever reason need to change it again, my understanding is for now that is a CS ticket. There may be a future where it won't be, where we can just sell an item in a store perhaps or something like that. But my understanding is right now it's still a CS process. But any guild that gets renamed will have a free name change. Where can you find the information about the Guild Airship paint stuff? That would be ddo.com. Look for our main transfer article, Guide to Transfers, and you'll find it right there. It's all throughout the article in the different places. There's the 100 slots code, there's the Airship 2 codes, there's the pet rename code. There's another? We've clearly used codes as a way to solve some problems, have we not? Got a big one next week. I'm very excited by it. I think people are going to be pretty excited with our solution, not just to this favor issue, but things you probably already figured out. Nonetheless, this is a great time because it's a good opportunity perhaps next week to let your friends know about what we might be doing with our 64-bit worlds. Make sure that they're able to join you by transferring over if possible, and things like that. So it has gotten super duper hot in this room over the course of the last hour. We are in a... It's been really beautiful in Massachusetts this past week, but we are heading into a hot weekend, I think. Oof. Yeah, I've got room. Oh, I got room for another quickie quest here, but I am pretty close to done on the live stream myself. So I'm mostly just leveling up this character right now as a Dragon Lord. I brought this up in the Discord, but one of the things this week's post transfers that has been kind of rough is that I had characters that transferred just fine with their reincarnation cache. It wasn't until it wasn't fine that all of a sudden we had to pivot. Me and another developer had failed reincarnation caches as we were in our internal environment about 20 minutes before going live, right? And so what that means, though, is there's a whole bunch of characters right now that have their reincarnation cache that transfer just fine.
Into the gambling hall is clear.
And every time I'm logging into one of those characters, I'm like, oh, this could have been us. Yes, it wasn't, we don't think. I mean, some of the... So I say yes, but I say work is still underway to validate and confirm and everything. But yes, we believe we found an issue with essentially a change that happened to the reincarnation system around 2020. And so people who are in a weird condition for whatever reason, where it's still referencing that old pre-2020 thing, are unable to... It's why they're getting lost. Because it's trying to read it and it's like, I don't know what this is. And the fix then is to explain what it is, and I believe actually sort of version up things so that it's not a problem to begin with. but that work will have to be validated and then deployed in a future release. But if we can validate that, if all that does work out, we could be in a position to, from now on, just let people transfer with their reincarnation cache, and it'll be fine. And wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, it's why most of my characters transferred fine, and then until one didn't. It's because the one who didn't had actually put themselves, and that reincarnation cache had been created something around 2017, 2018, and I just never got another past life on that character. And so it was one cause of triggering this issue.
You've wrecked enough tables to satisfy Brother Augustus.
I don't have anything to say today about the refactoring of the monster manual. We clearly have been busy getting transfers ready, getting the Chill of Ravenloft ready to release, dealing with all the packing and unpacking and engineering. And that was on the heels of update 74 and 73 and everything too. So there just has not really been time to focus on it. And that's ultimately why we made the decision to move forward on the 64-bit worlds with really remnants of an old system while we work on a new. And when we do get to that point in time, we'll have plenty to say about it. But I learned myself just a few weeks ago now that players are very anxious about it. And someone had asked me in Discord just to kind of make an off the cuff, hey, what are we thinking about right now? And I made the mistake of answering them and caused a bit of a stress spiral among players who were like, wait a second, you're doing what? And it's like, no, we're not doing anything. I was just talking. So instead, I will not just be talking, and we will have to hear more about what happens with the monster manual when we're actually ready to present that information. Yeah, I'm not doing this one quite yet. I'm not doing Cobalt Assault. We'll wrap it up here with the 5 minute of the Baudries. The question is the lag we're seeing on Shadowdale similar to the issues we saw when Cormyr first started? No. It'll be very different. And I don't know if I remember what exactly the launch of Cormyr was like these days. But that would probably have been initial setting up a 64-bit world issue. Whereas this was specifically a stress on the game world due to packing and unpacking and everything else. So I think, because especially there was no packing and unpacking when we launched Cormyr. Oh, also, actually, you know what the biggest thing is? That's not an issue now, but Cormyr started as a fresh start world, right? So there was no character data transfer, so there was none of that kind of old heavy characters and that to bring over, none of that impact on the game world as a result. So very different on top of that, for that reason as well. Yep. So I am. I'm just saying, especially at these lower levels, until I really get about level 7, 8, something like that, I just tend not to worry about what I have equipped too much at this point. I just sort of do what you're seeing here and get myself to about level 5. About level 5, I suppose, is really when I start worrying about my gear. On this character, one of the things I might do either this weekend or in the coming weeks is I'm going to have a big Caneth Craftathon, where I sort of pick up some Caneth Crafting XP potions and get ready to do that. And then crunch down a whole bunch of old junk loot. And that's also going to be a Sentient XP weekend, too, where I'm going to be crunching down named loot that I brought over and consolidated to boost up my Sentient XP on my characters a little bit. But I haven't done that yet. I've just really left all that random gen stuff in my shared bank and everything. Or bank tunes. I'll take care of that. So Thrain is locked up at the moment. I would point out I am on Thrain at the moment. And although we did see a little bit of stuttering in that here just a little bit ago, for the most part, I think you would say that this is not locked up. That doesn't mean your instance isn't, however. Or perhaps a certain section of the environment may be in distress. What is up with, quote, locking out the worlds? Are you talking about worlds that are available to transfer from through the transfer wizard? If so, the answer to that is we allow transfers, they display when there is room. So each server has X amount of space to allocate transfers, and when that gets too full, we need to stop further transfers from it. That'll prevent the kind of issues we saw over on the Lord of the Rings Online side, where people would queue up to the point that you'd be looking at a week to transfer your character, and this prevents that from happening. But what it means is that if it's full, you aren't going to be able to transfer because it won't be available to you as an option. And in that case, you just need to wait until there is room for you. If your issue is something else, however, let me know. Is there a server cap on concurrent players? There is. Thankfully, it is not something we run into very often, but we do have these caps in place, yes. And there was a thought that it could impact us if we, especially those first couple of weekends. So we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. But there is a cap in place, and you'll know you've hit the cap if you try to log in and you get put into a server queue. To date, we haven't come close. It'll be fine, but it is a theoretical thing that could happen. All right, and that is going to wrap it up with Fridays at 4. I'll see you in 2 weeks post Gen Con. If you're heading to Gen Con and if you're heading to the Punch Bowl Social, I will see you there next Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. Otherwise, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Hope you have a great time in DDO. Good luck if you're transferring, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.